Nos discussions. Je vous remercie de bien vouloir prendre place. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind, we will resume. Je vais inviter les panélistes de la première session à s'installer sur l'estrade. Dis-moi.
J'ai pas ton nom exactement.
Nasma Jondi.
Jandi.
Nasma Jondi.
Gérondi.
Susanna, please, I can go back and you can introduce the session. We do that.
C'est aussi pour toi, c'est pas super sympa de te mettre là au moins que je puisse.
Il n'y a pas de problème.
Par contre, je vais.
Non, mais j'arrive. Bien sûr. Yes.
Just want to let you know that I'm the past Mr. Weishigon. So
Yes.
I'm Pri.
Nice to meet you.
Okay,
Pri.
you know this.
Nice to
Okay,
meet you.
I'm
I know.
sorry.
I was aware.
You're alerted.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So have a seat, please. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am Nasma Jrondi. I'm a climate, energy, and sustainable development expert with the Mohammed VI Foundation for Environmental Protection. I am delighted and honored to be your moderator today to open the first session on innovating projects, delivery through sustainable finance and technology. Today, we have a wide, distinguished panel with lots of expertise. We have 10 speakers with us and very limited time, so I'm going to ask the speakers, please, to be short in your presentations and to be brief. So today, this panel will present new financing tools, clarify the concepts, the taxonomy, and the news around green finance. We will also introduce new digital tools for planning and carrying out projects which ensure more resilience and sustainability. In this discussion, we will share best practices, but also the challenges faced to help us transition to eco-mobility and understand the different roles played by different stakeholders. Without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker on the panel, Mr. Nicolas Pelletier, Global Manager Transport at the World Bank, who is not present with us today, but has sent a recorded video message that, I'm asking you please to put on the screen. So if we can have the video for Mr. Pelletier, please.
Thank you for your invitation to speak at this important international conference for sustainable mobility organized by the International Road Federation. With COVID, climate change, and the supply chain situation happening in the world today, it is now more important than ever to reflect together how we can reinvent mobility to make it cleaner, safer, more inclusive, and more resilient. The World Bank and the International Road Federation are strong partners. We are both active members of the Sustainable Mobility for All Partnership, a premier platform for global cooperation on transport and mobility issues. The IRF has in particular been championing road safety issues in close collaboration with the World Bank Global Road Safety Facility and with the other 56 partners of Sustainable Mobility for All. I am especially proud to open this session today on innovation project delivery through sustainable finance and technology. As COP27 is getting closer, the discussion on the way forward about how to decarbonize the transport sector and electrify mobility is becoming increasingly relevant. Decarbonizing transport has become a global imperative, with about a quarter of global greenhouse emissions coming from transport and keeping rising. At the World Bank, we are using the now widely recognized Avoid, Shift, Improve framework to frame our interventions. Avoid unnecessary trips, shift to cleaner modes of transport, and improve the carbon efficiency of mobility. We often add a fourth pillar, resilience, to include climate adaptation in this strategic framework. As many recent extreme climate events have shown, ensuring that transport infrastructures are climate resilient is essential. For road transport, which still represents a major part of global emissions from transport, this transition has major implications, and your discussions today will be very useful to inform this major challenge. Demand-based mechanisms such as congestion charges and carbon pricing, but also motorization management, vehicle inspections, regulation of used vehicles trading, e-mobility, or climate-smart road asset management are all powerful policies that will need to be mobilized and implemented to decarbonize transportation. But implementing these policies can represent major challenges for some developing countries, and we also need to find financing, institutional, and policy solutions that can help accelerate these necessary transitions. One good example that we've looked at closely at the World Bank is e-mobility. The economics of e-mobility are rapidly improving, and our research, based on a sample of developing countries and emerging economies, has shown that the savings accrued in vehicle operating costs and fuel over the life of electric vehicles now outweigh the initial purchase price in more than half of these countries. But the high upfront cost can still represent a significant barrier to the rapid dissemination of electric vehicles in the developing world. We concluded that three important priorities to promote e-mobility are: one, prioritizing the electrification of long mileage and high occupancy solutions such as public transportation; two, electrifying last mile connectivity with two and three wheelers; and three, support the development of charging infrastructure, perhaps the most influential factor in private EV adoption. The World Bank stands ready to support countries in decarbonizing transport and progressively transitioning to zero-emission mobility. Our newest facility, the Global Facility to Decarbonize Transport, will be a crucial element of our support. I look forward to hearing about your conclusions, and I wish you an excellent and fruitful session. Thank you.
So thank you for this very interesting message and setting the priority for the decarbonization of the transport sector. Our first speaker with us on stage is Professor Arnold Dix, President of the International Tunneling and Underground Space Association of Councils White and Case. So, Professor, how can we fast-track projects delivery from the perspective of tunneling and underground industry, and how we can use underground space, how this use can positively contribute to a more sustainable mobility and development, and how the carbon footprint of tunneling projects can be reduced? Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Assalamu alaikum. Greetings from Australia, greetings from the International Tunnelling Association, and thank you for your invitation. The underground has, for at least the last 100 or 150 years, been providing the most sustainable connections in the world, especially in transportation and energy, and sewerage and water. And I see I'm at the conference of the International Road Federation. I wonder whether this millennium we should be the International Connectivity Foundation, roads being a very last century term. If I can go to my next slide, please. So, Vote 1 Morocco. Thank you. I put together a very short presentation. I was asked my advice for Morocco, and for project efficiency and delivery, my advice would be for Morocco to set its own clear objectives in advance to going to the market. Not ask, how do we be like New York? Not ask, how do we be like Paris? How do we be like London? How do we be Morocco? What do we need here? Because this is a unique place, and we've heard this morning, with unique aspirations and unique opportunities. Sustainability. What does sustainability mean here? For example, I've heard that one of the large exports from Morocco is actually cattle and the growing agricultural sector. There are some in the world who will be critical of that because of the methane production. So the question is, what does sustainability mean here? And when I look at the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, it tells me that it's about economic, social, and environmental improvement, not simply one criteria. So low carbon footprint is not just a copy-paste from another city, another country, or another region. It's for here. And in terms of sustainable mobility, and my eyesight, I'm sorry, Mr. Photographer, I can't see through you, but thank you. Sustainable mobility here would be uniquely Moroccan from what I see. Yes, it's about connections, but it's about connections Marrakech style, or Casablanca style, or the port style. So the outcome would be improved efficiency, but it would be through the lens of what is needed here. And in terms of underground construction and the footprint, the absolutely irrefutable footprint of underground construction in terms of carbon, our sector, the multi-trillion-dollar sector for underground development, is now partnering with industry for the development of super low carbon materials to do our underground construction, and also materials which last hundreds of years as our underground infrastructure must, and equipment and methodologies to minimise the consumption of energy during its lifetime. And in terms of fast track, which was a question that I was specifically asked, there needs to be a clear definition of what's required so that Morocco knows what success looks like. And I give an example, set a number. Define the environment that you're tunnelling through. And I know this is an audience that loves roads. Imagine if all your roads you had to dig 50 metres underground. The risk is so much different. So spending money on understanding the underground in advance of a project will save a lot of heartache and make fast track much more possible. And also here, make sure for Morocco that you have the expertise within the client, within the government or whomever the client is, to critically stress test what is offered to your country, because it's easier to copy-paste than it is to create something especially for the particular Moroccan needs. And there are new tools. At ITA, we've developed a new contract with FIDIC that specifically deals with the special risks underground. At the moment, we're working with several organisations such as the BRE and NEC and others in the US and France to create new contracts for this millennium that are not based on disputes, that contemplate change, that understand the value of sustainability and value them in a contractual, modern 21st century framework. We've also partnered with the insurers. So at ITA, we deal with the reinsurers, and we're working with them to better risk manage our projects for the good of the clients and the good of the insurance market, because without insurance, we can't get finance. And we work with the financiers as well, with the banks, to give them the expertise they need to critically review the merits of our projects. So in conclusion, my advice here in Morocco today, just weeks before the next COP conference, know what you want. Define what your country needs and what it can afford. Demand that you get just that. Know how to measure it and control the delivery of your underground. And if you do, I know this is roads, but your connections, your water, your sewage, your hydro, your power, it will be for multiple generations, because the underground lasts essentially forever. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for emphasizing the importance of having a national-based vision. And I like what you suggested, sustainable mobility Marrakech style. We will keep this as a quote for the press. So thank you so much, Professor. Our second speaker is Mr. Nicolas Miravals, CEO of Oris. So Mr. Miravals has a very large experience in Africa and internationally, and he has been leading Oris Group since 2016. So Mr. Miravals, how can digitalization in road projects can free resources to be invested in rural roads? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you want to?
Yes, maybe we have a few slides.
Yeah, you have the...
Yes, I have everything.
Okay,
no problem. Thank you. Yes. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and very honored to be here. We talk about, it's a bit more of than a presentation today, it's an announcement. We talk a lot about collaboration, so I'm happy to be here co-presenting with UNIDO today for this announcement. Pri, please.
Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished panelists and participants. My name is Pri Elam Turotil, and I'm here to represent Mr. Wei Shigong. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it, so I had to jump in last minute. And yes, so I work as a project associate for the Investment and Technology Promotion Offices, the ITP Network and Institutional Partnerships Division at UNIDO. And Mr. Wei Shigong, he sends his best wishes from Vienna. So yeah, here we are today, and we're very excited to present to you a new partnership between ORIS and UNIDO. So Nicolas, take it away.
Thank you. So first, recall on what ORIS is. ORIS is a digital platform to help projects be more sustainable and be more impact conscious, should I say. And we have been developing that with a lot of digital and data processes and algorithms. And today what ORIS does, in very brief, supporting projects in generative design and material assessment, low carbon along the life cycle and life cycle assessment for the whole life of the project, which is quite unique in a software. Natural resources consumption and control. The project materials and cost estimates will be very much dependent on the choice of materials as well. And the climate change resilience, there is a climate change resilience module, and last but not least, a safety prediction module, which is in connection with IRF, with which we have signed a partnership recently. So this is a very, very brief presentation of what ORIS is, but in terms of impact, you can see the benefits using such a model, and we talk a lot about digitization this morning. The impacts are there with the construction cost, with the carbon emission reduction, with the maintenance needs, and the natural resources consumption, just integrating from start all the construction capabilities of a project.
So just very briefly, the ITPOs and institutional partnerships at UNIDO. So investment and technology promotion have had a long history at UNIDO. The first investment promotion services were launched in 1976 in Brussels, and after an evaluation, they have now evolved into the investment and technology promotion offices. And today, the ITP network consists of 9 ITPOs with their own unique but also diversified features, as they work very closely with the donors, and based on this relationship have also come up with unique services. And what the ITPOs do is they act as impartial advisors and brokers across the entire investment promotion and technology transfer life cycles. And yeah, ITPOs, as you can see, are strategically located in the global north and global south. So this creates a continuous opportunity for all kinds of synergies and collaborations and partnerships in various thematic areas, including digitalization and Industry 4.0.
Thank you, Pri. So what ORIS and UNIDO can do together is very much focused on rural roads and local roads. So maybe Pri, you tell us more.
Yes, so in the middle you will see SDG 9, and this is the III SDG, so it stands for Innovation, Industry and Infrastructure. And this brings us to the opportunity at hand today, a new and innovative partnership platform to facilitate investment promotion and technology transfer for urban modernization, but also for rural infrastructure upgrading, which is very much missing. So connecting rural areas to roads, yeah.
So how does this work? this is a very straightforward explanation on that. So please.
Yeah, so rural roads and infrastructure development are much needed, but what about those roads that have never been built or have never gotten the visibility due to limited public sector funding and surely the high upfront costs?
One of the pain of this sector, as you all know, is the financing of those local roads, those remote roads. Most of the financing will go straight to structural infrastructure, to motorways and expressways and large infrastructure. But what about local roads and roads for people? So this is a gap in the financing scheme today, and we want to contribute, help, and support this gap closing.
Another key challenge is also for agro-industrial parks and their lack of connectivity also to productive infrastructure, which then again limits them from both attracting and retaining investments. So this is also a challenge we hope to tackle through this partnership.
How does this work? So this is a little bit technical, but we'll go through very, very quickly. You see on the left side of it, those infrastructure needs, structural infrastructure as we call it, can be optimized, and that's the purpose of using a tool and using digital. So optimizing this will generate savings, will generate low carbon, will generate a lot of benefits in terms of natural resources, cost of the project, and so. And those savings can be reallocated, can be recirculated in the road economy for local roads and for agricultural roads and for access to local facilities. And we want to ease and facilitate this transition from large financing to local financing. And UNIDO is also here with a strong network to support that.
Yes, and we have, for this purpose, also developed a new tool called ETAP, which is the Investment and Technology Advisory Platform, and it's especially designed to take a sector-specific approach to upscale various projects through innovative financing, such as the Rural Road Fund. And of course, ORIS is the perfect partner here for the road infrastructure and transport sector. And just very quickly, ETAP shall support by connecting the dots and creating further linkages for more and increased collaboration between the private and public sectors, and also leverage resources and sector-specific expertise, which is missing, and support in upscaling pilot projects to regional programs, taking a programmatic approach.
About the benefits, because we expect benefits from this partnership, not only that it's a global partnership that can have a lot of impact, but we can derive those benefits in several categories. So regarding sustainability, that's absolutely a no-brainer. Passing projects through this digital capacity to lower the impact of those projects will definitely participate to a low-carbon transportation industry.
Yes, and moving on to inclusiveness, another big concern is, of course, food security. We all know this. And with the rising prices of transportation costs, unfortunately, we are also losing a lot of produce. For instance, up to 60% of produce can be lost in transportation, during the transportation. So, yeah, this brings us to our closing statement. Nicolas?
Absolutely. So you will hear more about us in the coming months. This is today the announcement, so we are really happy and proud to make this announcement here in this assembly. You will hear more about pilot projects and about sponsor capacity for this program. Whoever you are, wherever you are, there is probably some collaboration further.
Yes, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and my apologies because I didn't know you were supposed to speak together, but this saved us time.
Very last minute. I found out on Monday that I'm coming to Marrakech, so.
So you are most welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please have your seats back, and I'm going to go sit over there so that I can leave the podium for the speakers. Thank you so much, and it was interesting to share this joint project between ORIS and UNIDO with the concrete implementation of SDGs. So now let me turn to Mr. Badr Iken, Vice President of the Green Economy Commission at the Moroccan Confederation of General Enterprises, CGEM, who will develop the Moroccan roadmap for electric mobility and share with us the main objectives and recommendation of this roadmap. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nisma. Excellencies, honorable assistants, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very glad to be here because I think this conference is not only a knowledge and experience sharing platform, but this is also a kind of catalyst. 2017, I had the opportunity with another head to sign an agreement with the EDM, and less than 6 months later, we had the first highway corridor in Morocco with 50 charging stations for e-vehicles. And this is also then the topic of my presentation today. I have a few slides. I would like to share with you how are we working the private sector, the General Confederation of Moroccan Enterprises, with the public sector to develop the Marrakech-style e-roadmap. We worked and we finished the first phase of this study. The idea was to analyze the ecosystem and to identify the most promising components which might be then local, integrated in Morocco and local manufactured. We worked also on the regulatory framework, and the other important aspect is the e-charging plan to develop and to have an adapted infrastructures. We heard then before in the session before that we might have then a huge need and impact on our electrical grid, and this is why there is also another study conducted by our national grid operator, ONE. But it's important to say that we have also then to change the mindset. This would be then a little bit then different. We don't need to do it like we did for fossil fuel cars, but we have the opportunity to charge during the night, to use also then street lighting and other. There are a lot of innovative solutions, and we have to adapt them. And this is a very good example how we cooperate then together and a good partnership between the private and the public sector. What is the current context in Morocco? Today, we have only then around about 400 electrical vehicles, more than 10,000 hybrid vehicles, 12 electrical buses. We have already and received an information from some colleagues who are here present, more than 600 e-chargers. It means 3 years ago we had only then less than 100. Today we have then more than 600 e-chargers. And regarding the local production, we have already the production of city cars like the Citroën Ami or also then Opel Rox E. We started also the production of e-chargers, also then here in Morocco. And we have a lot of first policies like an adapted VAT, a reduction for electrical and hybrid cars. And soon we will have also then to respect the Euro 6 emission standards. What was then the first important then information what we noticed? Today we reach already, when we analyze then the cost of the ownership of an electrical vehicle, we reach already then the parity for 2- and 3-wheelers when we see and when we have the calculation of the capex and opex. This is still not the case for cars, taxis, and buses, and this is why we need also then to have incentives. And today, this is then those are then the numbers and projections for 2030. There is a reference case. This would be around about then 250,000 cars. It means a percentage share of around about 10%. And we will be then, we will have to install around about 50,000 chargers. And this is all the time a mix between slow chargers and also then fast chargers, I will say 1/3 and 2/3. We did a benchmark. We heard also then this morning from President Chemi, there are already then countries who decided then to stop then to sell fossil fuel then engines in less than 10 years or in 15 years. We did also then the benchmark to adapt also then our strategy, and we prepared an action plan based on the 3 pillars which I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. And this is only then to give you then an overview. We would like in the 3 phases then to support the development of the local production of EV chargers, but also battery production. It was also mentioned by President Chemi. There are also new opportunities like battery second life use and recycling, and also, of course, then the opportunity for a lot of new services. Governance is also very important, regulatory framework, and of course, at the beginning, we might have incentives for the launching phase. And the 3rd pillar is a very important one, is the EV charging infrastructures. This is very important because we have to develop adapted models. We have to set up a public minimal infrastructure for the charging station? Do we have to combine between then the private and the public? And those are very important then information which might be then implemented in the next months, I would say in the next then 3 or 4 years. I still have then only then 2 slides. I don't know what's about then the time, but this is only then to show you when I mentioned the potential of 2- and 3-wheelers. Here you see that we might reach by 2030 258,000 electrical cars. This will save more than 280,000 tons of CO2. But also if we have a look to the 2-wheelers, we might have the opportunity, even if the investment is less important, $25 million US dollars instead, for example, of 1 billion for electrical cars, we would be then able to save the same amount also of CO2. And this is what you mentioned, Professor Dix. We have to see what is the current situation in Morocco and also in Africa. We have in a lot of sub-Saharan countries and African countries the use of a lot of 2- and 3-wheelers, and this is why we have to adapt our strategy, and also the same with the buses. Of course, this is then a real opportunity for the private sector also to develop and to become a part of this then added value regarding the manufacturing, regarding the services, and so on. And this is what I wanted then to share with you. Regulatory framework would be then the priority, also then the charging infrastructure plan, minimal infrastructure, EV chargers management model, and interoperability. We have then to be careful and to avoid the problem which we have today, for example, with cell phones. And slowly we have the same regarding also then the cars, CHAdeMO, and then different standards. We have then to adapt them. And we are glad to announce also that the private sector with the public sector will be in a national commission to support then the implementation of this roadmap. And of course, it's also then I would like then to inform you that we will have then the second phase to extend this first work to generally sustainable mobility and not only then the urban e-mobility. Thank you very much for your comprehension because of the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bad. Thank you. Thank you for respecting the time and introducing the Marrakech-style electric mobility roadmap. Let me turn now to Mr. Ali Ipinge, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Road Fund Administration in Namibia and President of the African Road Maintenance Fund Association. So thank you so much for being with us today. And we would like to hear from you about the impact of electric mobility is having now and will have in the future on infrastructure planning, delivery, and financing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Director of Proceedings, and thank you to the IRF for inviting us as AMFA, which simply stands for the Association for Road Maintenance Funds in Africa. Just by way of a quick intro of AMFA, we are a non-political association. We were established about 20 years ago in Gabon, and at this stage we have got about 36 members who are predominantly from sub-Saharan Africa, and it is our wish to make sure that we have got a full continental association. So we are inviting our fellow North African brothers and sisters to join this good network. We believe it is good for Africa in terms of connecting the continent in terms of the road infrastructure. Our vision, and this is really a new strategic map for AMFA, which was adopted at our annual General Assembly about 3 months ago in Dakar. And the vision really is in the next 5 years, we want to see a better improved roads, conditions on the continent, and also to widen the coverage of the road infrastructure in Africa. And that is really being done as part of the newly adopted AU Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement, which was ratified about 2 years ago by the member countries. Now, if I just come back to the continent, and this is really a map of Africa, and the message from this slide is really to see how Africa is connected and could be connected. We have about 9 key corridors across the continent from south to north and from east to west. And that road network in totality on the continent is about just sort of 3 million kilometers. So for the size of the continent and for the population of the continent, those road networks, of course, are not sufficient to move Africa forward. So we have an opportunity for investment opportunities in the road sector, both in terms of promoting and widening and lengthening the corridors or the highways. There are opportunities to do so. Because at the moment, certain sections of those corridors are not in good conditions in terms of the quality of the network, but also there's a lot of congestions and there are problems at the borders. I think that was mentioned a while back. So we need to make improvements on those if we are to move forward. I mentioned that we have about 3 odd million kilometers of roads on the continent, and these statistics from 2017. Or just slightly more than a third of those are in Southern Africa. So it then means that there is an underrepresentation of the road infrastructure on most parts of the continent. So it's a challenge, but also an opportunity in terms of investments. I think this slide has, a number of speakers have spoken to that, so I'll not go into details of those. Let me speak about the decarbonization of roads on the continent. I think the Paris Agreement we are all aware of. It brings an opportunity certainly to the road users and it's good for the planet. But for the road sector institutions like ourselves, the road funds and the roads authorities on the continent, it brings a added challenge in terms of how do we then move from what we know now into the future, given the challenges that I alluded to. And part of the challenge really is that most of the countries rely between 50% to 80% on the maintenance of the roads. We rely on fuel levy as a revenue source. So certainly with the emergence of fuel-efficient vehicles and the emergence of electric vehicles, there will be less fuel used or demanded in the future. So then the question then is, as a continent, how do we then find new ways of collecting revenue through the user pay principles to maintain, rehabilitate, and expand our road network? And I think for us that is a key challenge that we need to find. And I think Professor Dixie mentioned that we need to find homegrown solutions, and this is, of course, a challenge for Africa, but certainly there can be adaptation of some of the programs and solutions that have been found elsewhere.
Can you please conclude?
I will conclude now. This is just a slide on Namibia in terms of our estimation in terms of fuel use in the future. And you could see that the fuel demand is falling, and we rely 50% of our revenue to fund the maintenance of the roads in Namibia from the fuel levy. So we need to find solutions to counter that. And what are some of the proposed solutions? The road tolling, I think on the continent, is still very low. A number of countries are still to adopt the tolling as a revenue instrument for the road maintenance. Distance-based road user charges, I think, is one of those solutions that I think are critical for us to explore to make sure that when cars are traveling more distances because of fuel efficiency, or when there is no fuel being consumed, then we need to find a way to charge, as part of the user pay principles, the road users for using the road. And I think this is part of the solutions that we need to find. This is just a small map of Namibia in terms of our roads, and I wanted to talk about the Namibian case, but just 1 minute on it. We have about 49,000 kilometers in Namibia. We have adopted the user pay principle in the 90s. It has worked for us, and I think we are generating about $200 million per annum from the road users, and then the government fund another $200 million for new projects. What that has done for us over the past 20 years is to find a solution to maintain our road infrastructure. And because of that system, we're able to really enjoy the ranking on the continent. I think we have enjoyed the #1 ranking in Africa for the past 5 years. And we have even improved in the globe in terms of the global ranking. And I think it talks to the solutions that we have employed over the years. But I think, and lastly, I think what we need to do in terms of change management, we need to look at new policies, laws, and regulations around the future, which is the electromobility. We need to find a way to provide charging stations across these wide distances on the continents. Most of our roads are in rural areas, so the solution then is how do we then implement those solutions going forward, given our unique challenges on the continent. So let me end there, Madam Moderator.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so sorry, but we have to try to keep the time. But thank you for sharing with us the African perspective. So I guess our two next speakers will speak together, maybe? Okay, so that's what I thought. Okay, so Mr. Pietro Tocci Lucifora, General Manager of EcoGest, and Mr. Antonio Stornello, Architect and co-founder of Cassandra SRL. Please, you can move towards the podium, and can you please share with us the case study application of Cassandra methodology on highway in Italy? Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will try to make easier 2 interventions in one.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thanks all the board of IRF for the welcome invitation. Thank you to the President, thank you to the Minister and all the authorities. A special thanks on behalf of myself and the Molinari family, who delegated me to the represent Ecogest, goes to the beautiful country that hosts us. Today we are not here by chance. We are here because of 3 years ago, thanks to our 50 years experience on the road in the maintenance of the green areas along highways, we realized that something was irreversibly changing, both in the climate but also in the effects that the climate had on transport infrastructures. This is why we have created the Climate Change Study Center, thanks to an innovative idea of Mr. Valerio Molinari. And for this reason, in collaboration with the friends who invented the Cassandra software, which we will shortly present, we have tutored Italy and the world proposing to those who manage the highways innovative solutions that, starting from the maintenance of the vegetation, can involve many aspects of the life of each individual transport infrastructure. The impacts of climate change are now a certainty to live with, and the transport infrastructure remains one of the most affected sectors. The increase in temperatures compared to pre-industrial level is evident and continues with a linear upward trend. The data are worrying. Last August, an estimated global surface temperature of 1.21 degrees Celsius was recorded, above the pre-industrial average. According to projections estimated by the IPCC, it could reach 1.5 degrees Celsius, the limit set by the Paris Agreement for around 2044. In a high-emission scenario, climate anomalies will be severe, with a global warming of around 4.5 Celsius by the end of the 21st century. Rainfall will become much more intense and frequent in the middle latitudes and in the humid tropical regions, while it will become rare in the Mediterranean and the temperate zones, with an accentuation of the desertification process. In this sense, the choice of species for new plantations on roads and highways, but also the articulation of the maintenance path, become an essential part of a serious and concrete policy of preventing and combating climate change. These anomalies that are already taking place bring with them extreme weather events that endanger the maintenance and safety of the roads. Current infrastructures are not prepared to deal with the impacts of such events. A clear example are effects caused by the recent Hurricane Fiona, which has had a devastating impact on parts of the Caribbean and eastern Canada. We can see the impact of the hurricane on one of Puerto Rico's roads. The floods swept away the roads, causing severe landslides. The resilient design of new roads should be supported and measures taken to adapt existing roads to future climatic conditions, starting with the adaptation of maintenance programs which cannot remain the same as 20 years ago, but must take into account the consequences and effects of the climate change. Are we ready for this?
Are we ready? This is the question, and the answer cannot be postponed. If we do not answer this question rapidly, problems and damages caused by climate change will increase exponentially. Already in 2021, AON, the international insurance company, indicated a massive 343 billion US dollars from economic loss resulting from extreme weather events. As also indicated by the OECD during the last COP26 event entitled Building Infrastructure, Resilience and Strengthening Maintenance, we must increase the resilience of our infrastructure. This needs to be done through proper maintenance, scheduling, plannings. In a sense, we need to make better management decisions. If an infrastructure asset already has a low resilience index due to poor maintenance, an extreme weather event could cause the infrastructure go into a crisis, resulting in increased recovery cost and time. If we did not perform any maintenance at all after a critical event, we could have the collapse of the infrastructures, and perhaps we might not be able to return into an acceptable situation. If, on the other hand, we have an optimal management of the infrastructure aimed at increasing its resilience, in the event of a critical event, the infrastructure will be able to successfully withstand the event, significantly reducing costs and recovery times. Cassandra is an integrated decision support system that can help you increase the resilience of our infrastructure. By creating a parametric virtual twin of the infrastructure, it will be possible to have a resilience index of the entire area, which will consist of the average of the individual elements making up the study area. Each element and the relationship between them is evaluated through 12 main parameters and hundreds of sub-parameters. Starting from the existing resilience index, it will be possible to carry out different predictive scenarios to identify in advance the more effective decision and action to be implemented. An experimental application of Cassandra has been carried out on a series of specific sections of the motorway operated by Concessioni Autostradale Venete SPA, together with the Climate Change Study Center and Greenway Group, to study the resilience of its infrastructure and improve decision-making. We are studying 3 sites in 3 different contexts: urban, semi-urban, and rural, in Veneto, in northeastern Italy. One of these sites, for example, is part of the Mestre Ring Road near Venice, an important motorway artery that crosses a highly urbanized area. We created a digital twin of the motorway together with its surrounding context to study potential actions by analyzing all the data present in that area. In this panel board, you can see a summary of the information that we have collected and analyzed, and which are the constituent elements of our digital twin. Data that help us to create our digital twin with a high level of detail, which is a highly accurate digital copy of the real world. As I said previously, each constituent element of the digital twin has its own resilience index, evaluated through its parameter and the relationship between them. The resilience of the surrounding context is also considered, and all the elements contribute to the overall score. Once we have assessed the current resilience, we then study various scenarios altering these parameters until we find an optimum one that can meet the objectives, and an adaptive pathway plan can be created. The relationship with the context and with the local authorities and residents is important. Therefore, 3 levels of actions will be proposed within the action plan. The first, in which the CAV will operate on the infrastructures and the land under its exclusive management. A second level of action together with the local authorities, and a third level to be carried out together with the private citizens. In this way, we'll be able to answer the question we posed at the beginning. In conclusion, we cannot afford to be ready. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you for sharing with us the importance of data collection to help decision making in building more climate resilient roads and infrastructures. So thank you so much. My next speaker is Mr. Laurent Charles Nicolas, Development Director Africa for Aegis Group, who will give us the perspective of a private operator in the road infrastructure systems. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, President Benazouz, distinguished previous IRF President, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So my name is Laurent Charles Nicolas. I've been working in the road industry since more than 20 years. And since 10 years, I'm working for Aegis. So I'm very pleased to be with you this morning. I committed to our moderator, Nasma, that I won't be too long. So I will share with you 5 slides only to share my thoughts about project delivery, keeping in mind the priority for all of us, which is obviously the climate changes. So question, how could we optimize project delivery, taking into account the deterioration of biodiversity, the demographic growth, the digital revolution, and the galloping urbanization? In our view, there are 2 major pillars that are really supporting the ongoing changes in our industry. Those pillars are the environmental, social, and governance criteria, together with technological innovation. This twofold approach that I'm going to develop in the next coming slides addresses the challenges of the climate emergency through physical assets and infrastructures that produce less carbon and more care for biodiversity. So, talking about ESG criteria, they are really necessary to set off standards for companies' behavior. It is therefore up to the grantors, the public grantors, and to the development banks, institutions, agencies, to integrate those ESG criteria into PPPs, into concessions. Consequently, those PPPs will attract socially conscious investors who screen potential green investments. So as an example, you can see on the left of your screen a picture of a road that I know quite well, the Kampala-Jinja, which is an existing road, but there is currently in Uganda part of a corridor that was mentioned by my fellow Ali earlier. There is currently a tender for a 30 years concession, greenfield, financed by IFC, AFD, Agence Française de Développement, and by the European Union through their investment plan. So according to EU studies, this new road, which will be an expressway 2x2, after its completion, will have reduced and divided by 2 the emission of pollutants and greenhouse gas. So the ESG criteria on this tender are very high, very demanding to preserve the ecosystem along the future expressway. So therefore, the Ugandan client is expecting a robust environmental and social impact assessment, so ESIA, to predict the environmental and social consequences that this future project might cause. So of course, the future concessionaire will have to put in place the appropriate measures to mitigate potential negative impacts and to comply with environmental local laws. I insist on local laws. It's important, as mentioned by Professor Dix, to have this also local approach and to comply with the local environment. So public and private clients are already very demanding in terms of innovative solutions to tackle environmental issues. Here are some examples of ongoing projects that we have with the City of Manchester. We signed a contract to set up and operate their clear air zone program during the next 5 years. Another example with the City of Paris, we launched a strategic study in order to put in place some pragmatic low carbon solutions. So talking about practical and concrete solutions, we have also embedded and implemented a smart soil solution, which is a system capable to measure the carbon absorption soil before and after interventions and recommendations. So this smart soil solution is already delivering some benefits to the airport of Abidjan, or for example to the 600 kilometers of roads that we operate between Brazzaville and Pointe-Noire in Congo. So to demonstrate that public clients and private investors are already succeeding in realizing these ambitions, here are some images that illustrate the integration of environmental criteria in international projects. So those recent projects were societal, environmental, and technological challenges, I have to admit, but they finally turned to be bankable and to meet the ESG objective from our clients. So as engineers, as operators, as concessionaires, we only invest in projects with carbon impact we can control and we can reduce. So ESG targets, together with the innovation solutions, are definitely the driving forces behind our ambitions. So in conclusion, I would simply like to emphasize the crucial moments that we are currently living together. And I'm insisting on the together. As mentioned by President Benazuz, sustainability has to be for all of us. So it's really a specific moment for each of us. So ladies and gentlemen, it is really our moment as project developers to put additional efforts and higher ambitions into our road infrastructures. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laurent, for emphasizing the importance of looking through projects with ESG glasses and have that in mind in developing road infrastructures. Last but not the least, Mr. Saïd Moulin, CEO of the Moroccan Agency for Energy Efficiency, who will share with us the projects led by the agency in financing tools and sensibilization projects developed also with Autoroute du Maroc. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Jondi, Monsieur le Président. Thank you very much, Mr. President Benazuz, for this invitation. It's glad for me because I'm very glad we were here during the COP22 in Marrakech a few years ago and discussing about all those energy transition, green economy for all sectors. As you heard this morning, Mr. Chamy, Monsieur le Ministre, they said our strategy about energy in this kingdom. In 2009, the King's letter was really clear. Priority to renewable energy and energy efficiency in our energy policy. We are a very energy dependent country. Maybe this year, the energy bill will reach $15 billion instead of 8. So for us, it's very important to look at all technologies, to look at all actions to decrease this energy bill, and to also, because what we saw this summer about climate change all over the world, we saw that we should be much more investing in a climate-oriented economy. I'm here to say about what we're doing as agency, but this policy, this King's letter, it was put some objective to reach, put some dedicated agencies. AME is one of them. Is in charge of energy efficiency in industry, building, agriculture, cities, and of course, transport. And when we talked about transport in our country, of course, the big part of the use today is linked to fossil fuel. But we start by putting some incentives in some kind of tax duties. So there is no custom duties today for any electrical or hybrid car. There is no car sticker, and there is no luxury tax since a few months. It's just to give some incentives for actors when they want to buy those new technologies in Africa, in our country, where maybe some people are saying that it's not the best things to do because we are scared about the ability to find charger everywhere. We are scared about this technology. And I'm hearing that this year, many Moroccans living abroad came in Morocco with electric cars. So we have today in the market 10,000 hybrid and electric cars running today in the country, but we received many Moroccans coming this summer with electric cars from Europe mainly. So it's starting, and we believe that we should, and you heard the roadmap by Mr. Eken that we are working on with all the actors, the public and the private ones. I was heading the public-private commission during the COP22, and we worked on all those sectors, and we believe that the best approach is through PPPs. It's very important to think that, especially in Africa. But for PPPs, you need confidence between actors, you need transparency in the contract, and you need, of course, governance respecting those contracts. That's how we manage to have today those big actors in the renewables, and you heard the opportunity today in the country about renewables. We have the cheapest kilowatt hour coming from renewables. And in the wind sector, we are reaching 3 cents per kilowatt hour. In the solar PV today, between 2 and 3 cents per kilowatt hour. So in this country, you can invest in those fields and having a really competitive approach. Also, what we are pushing in financing is energy transition, especially in the mobility. We are signing with all the local banks. And Mr. Shami mentioned this morning the green tatouer from the government with the Maroc PME. We are working together for putting some investment and even giving some subsidies for any investment in the green economy linked to energy saving, water saving, or circular economy. But also what we look at, all the local banks today have dedicated loans for any actors in the green economy. Sometimes with 10 to 15% grant, thanks to EBRD for the support for that, and the EU for the subsidies. But we are pushing that today there is no way that we should look at our economy without looking at the energy part, the climate part, and of course the social part. So that's why I'm glad here to say that we have the tools today. We have the financial tools today to help all the SMEs to invest in this energy transition. But one thing is also I would like to finish with that, is the behavior. And of course, we need a lot of sensitization. During the COP22, we launched the first Formula E Grand Prix here in Marrakech. And I'm heading the coalition for electrical sports since that time. And each year during the Grand Prix, we have different meetings showing, sensitizing the technologies to anyone. And to say that this mobility, this sustainable mobility, is something that we should look at it in a way much more quicker than before. One thing also is that on behavior, and with Autoroute du Maroc, we organized on the tool, on highway tool, some brochure that were giving some counsel for eco-driving, because with the actual park, we can decrease the consumption of the actual fleet. And the last point, and I would like to finish with that, is leading by example. The government has more than 113,000 vehicles today. And those vehicles, we are having a program for eco-driving for the drivers. We are also having a monitoring, because you can monitor and decrease the energy consumption and the energy bill with that. And of course, all the new investment should look at new technologies, hybrid, electric ones, and last but not least, I would like to finish with the industry. We have one car already exporting from Morocco. It's the AMI, the small AMI. I don't know if you heard about it. And this AMI, it was conceived in Morocco. It's produced in Kenitra and exported today in many countries in Europe. But also, there's a new car coming in Tangier in the next year. This was announced a few weeks ago, that new electric cars will be produced in Tangier with Renault for electrical mobility and share mobility. That's what I want to say. We have also a program with the government for this car sharing, and we think that everyone can use this mobility, but also look at la mobilité douce, this sweet mobility when we're talking about using your bicycle, or you can walk sometimes instead of using your car. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all of you. So if I can summarize very quickly the main key points shared in the discussion. So the importance of having a national-based policies depending on our own priorities, Marrakech-style policies, the importance of joint collaboration with the private sector and the UN agencies, putting into implementation the global SDGs, the African perspectives also as a continent, regarding our needs as a continent, the importance of data collection used through digitalization to measure and try to have policies that are more resilient to climate change, the importance of having ESG's goals in developing projects and financing tools with the sensibilization of the populations to change behaviors and move all together forward for a more sustainable mobility for all of us, more resilient to climate change. Thank you so much, all of you. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to thank you and maybe give the mic to Susanna. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you, Nasma Girondi, for being the moderator of this interesting session. It's time for lunch. I know you have been lingering for that. A couple of announcements. You will be escorted to lunch. Just get out from this room, from the main entrance, and it's going to be in the restaurant. If you're staying in this hotel, it's in the restaurant where we're having breakfast. But there will be stewardess escorting you to the lunch. A request to all of you, because we have taken a bit of delay with the program, please make sure that you are back not into this room, but in the exhibition area at 2 o'clock sharp, because we will have a fire session with very short presentations showcasing solutions. So we will be standing, coffee will be there, so digestion, it's easy to move forward. So make sure please that you are there at 2 o'clock. Stay with us as well, because don't forget, this afternoon we have plenty of key announcements to make, and I don't want to unveil anything. I will left you lingering for the news. We will have a couple of very interesting announcements, so stay with us, and also, last but not least, the award session. Have a good lunch, bon appétit tout le monde, et à 2 heures, pile. Merci.